What's up, everybody? Chester ARP Church Devotional Podcast. Hey, I'm Clint Davis. Thanks for being with us. We jump right in the book of Ezra chapter 6, beginning in verse 13. And this is what we read from Ezra's recording of the events of the finishing of the temple that God's people finished and dedicated after they returned from exile. Then, according to the word sent by Darius the king, Tattenai the governor of the province beyond the river, Shethar-Bonzani and their associates did with all diligence what Darius the king had ordered. And the elders of the Jews built and prospered through the prophesying of Haggai the prophet and Zechariah the son of Iddu. They finished their building by decree of the God of Israel and by decree of Cyrus and Darius and Artaxerxes king of Persia. And this house was finished on the 3rd day of the month of Adar in the 6th year of the reign of Darius the king. And the people of Israel, the priests and the Levites and the rest of the returned exiles, celebrated the dedication of this house of God with joy. They offered at the dedication of this house of God 100 bulls, 200 rams, 400 lambs, and as a sin offering for all Israel, 12 male goats according to the number of the tribes of Israel. And they set the priests in their divisions and the Levites in their divisions for the service of God at Jerusalem, as it is written in the book of Moses. So finally, they're able to finish the building of the temple. Chapter 3 was the story of laying the foundation. Chapters 4 and 5, opposition rises against them. Chapter 6, hey, go back through the annals of the kings of Persia and see what was actually being said for us to do. We have the privilege and the opportunity and the responsibility by result of the decree of Cyrus to build this house. Well, they go back through and they find it and they send word back and say, hey, listen, I want you to let these people build the house of God in Jerusalem, and I want you to provide everything they need, not just for the building of the house, but also for the offering of sacrifices. This is coming by the hand of the Persians to the people of Jerusalem. So they do exactly, the beginning of this section, do exactly as King Darius had said. Tattenai the governor of the province beyond the river, the Persians, they do exactly what the king has said, and they give everything that is needed to finish the building of the temple and to offer the sacrifices unto God to the people of God in Jerusalem so they can complete the building of the temple. This is one of those moments that is just full of joy. If you read it, you can see the joy of the people of God. It says here as an understatement, they celebrated the dedication of the house of God with joy. This was a culmination of years of work. Hardship and difficulties, fear and concern has finally come to completion in the completion of this temple. They have finally are now able to see the hand of God in everything that they do. They're able to celebrate and worship their God in the midst of their land once again. It's like they finally made it home. They finally were able to restore the temple and finally were able to reestablish themselves in Jerusalem. They'd been in Jerusalem for a number of years, but they had not been able to fully say, this is our city, this is our town, and fully be restored in that place until this point. Because now the temple was built, now God's dwelling is among his people, now the cloud descends upon the temple. Now they know that God's at home with his people in Jerusalem, and finally they are restored in the worship and the glory of God. This is a wonderful moment in the history of Israel, in the history of God's people as they return to Jerusalem after their captivity and rebuild this temple. And so as we read this, we can certainly see this was a moment of joy and celebration. We can understand how now they're finally excited. They're able to reestablish their sacrificial worship. They have everything that they need, and they are establishing the worship of God, the divisions of the Levites, etc., for the service of God at Jerusalem, as it is written in the book of Moses. So they're returning to the law, the Old Testament law, returning to the old way and reestablishing the worship of God, which is what God sent them home to do when he said you can go back to Jerusalem. And so we can look at it that way, and certainly this is a wonderful story of that, and it is a testimony to the joy of the people who are restored in the fortunes of God. But I think also if we look at this a little bit different perspective and a little bit deeper, we will recognize that this is a fantastic testimony of what God can and does do for his people. This is one of those, to use a modern phrase, this is one of those look at God moments. They were carried off into captivity by the hand of God into Babylon, right? Ultimately, it's by the hand of God. The Babylonians captured them, carried them off, destroyed the city of Jerusalem. Other people were moved into the area, and they moved into the area, and they took over. They were in captivity for 50 years. Then the Medo-Persian Empire took over the Babylonians, captured the Babylonians, and King Cyrus says you can return home. They return home. While they get home, they have everything they need to build their homes. They have to reestablish themselves in the Jerusalem community, in the Jerusalem area. They have to re-inhabit their homes. They have to rebuild their homes. They have to rebuild the temple. They have to reestablish their farming lands, all those different things that are necessary for survival. And they do that. Then they start building the temple, and then these opponents who are living there say, wait a minute, you're not supposed to be building this temple. Because these opponents who are living there said, we don't want you to build this temple in our presence. And so they send word to King Artaxerxes. King Artaxerxes says, stop, right? And but then the people of God say, you know what, we're going to keep building anyway, eventually, after they're challenged by some of the prophets. And so they start building again. So then they send word again, the local people send word to King Darius and say, hey, search through the records. And Darius searches through the records and finds the decree of Cyrus. And then Darius says, okay, this is the decree now to give them everything they need to finish the temple. Who would have thought, right? We would expect the people to return and rebuild the temple as a testimony of their diligence, of their commitment, of their perseverance, right? And certainly that's there. They had to build the temple. They had to do that. But when you look at it from the testimony of the Bible and the way the Bible tells the story, it is a testimony of the providential grace and goodness of God. Who would have thought that not only would they be able to return and build the temple, that's an amazing feat on its own, and we might give them credit for it. But who would have thought that everything they needed to be provided, even down to the very sacrifices they need to offer to God in worship of his name, would be provided by the king of the Medo-Persian Empire, by King Darius. It's remarkable when you think about how God has worked through the, quote, secular authorities to accomplish his purposes. He still does the same thing. This is a look at God moment, and it should encourage our hearts. It should strengthen us. It should build us up, and it should make us more confident in his ability to care for us. That's one of the beautiful things about these Old Testament narratives. They show us who God is, and they should encourage us oftentimes to live in faithfulness because we're resting and growing in confidence of what God is doing and how God has done it when we turn and we look at what God did in the Old Testament. You guys take care. God bless you. Go walk in faithfulness today because God is capable, God is good, and he will always fulfill his promises. Take care.